What's happening, everybody? Welcome back to another video. So today I'm going to be sitting down talking about the new Shudder documentary, the found footage phenomenon. So I've been really interested in this movie. Just really quickly, I have a lot of love for the found footage horror genre. Shudder is usually very good with their documentaries. I've talked about, for example, the series Cursed Films on the channel. They also have a documentary going into Black history with horror called Horror Noir, which I thought was exceptional. And yeah, I couldn't wait for this documentary. Again, this is a full-length film where they interview all kinds of different filmmakers, notably who have dabbled in the found footage genre. They interview the director of Cannibal Holocaust, to the director of Paranormal Activity, and my personal favorite, Patrick Brice, who directed one of my not only favorite found footage horror films, but one of my favorite horror films of all time, Creep. So yeah, I was really excited about this documentary. It kind of is, what I kind of expected, just a lot of these big filmmakers who have, had success in the found footage format, just being interviewed about, what their inspirations were, or, going into the history of found footage. And it is that, but it goes so much further than that, honestly. Like, it really does help you understand not only the found footage genre, but the actual history behind it. And, there are times where, I was taking notes throughout the whole documentary, just like taking notes on movies that I hadn't even fucking heard of. They were showing, clips of these movies, and the directors were talking about it and their inspirations, and I'm like, oh shit. And the documentary even goes into like deeper lore, like for example, like radio broadcastings. Like really quickly, so I haven't thought about this in a while. This kind of like brought it up, but my mother actually, so she's like a big War of the Worlds fan. The H.G. Wells thing, and even when we went to see the Tom Cruise remake when I was like in, I don't know, like 5th grade or some shit. We went to see that movie, and she was telling me, way back then about how this broadcasting episode of like this radio broadcast of the War of the Worlds, how it was making people, like fear for their lives because they were actually believing these episodes, and they were coming out on like Halloween and shit. And like this documentary even goes into that, saying how like that even like was like the deeper roots of like found footage, because it is something that is fictional, but it is made up so authentic that it actually sparks this whole storm in people. And going back to what I was saying earlier, how the film is basically just these found footage directors being interviewed about their work and whatnot, and about the history of found footage itself. One thing that I was really pleased about is how my boy Patrick Brice actually got a lot of screen time. They were interviewing him, talking about how he like what he was going through while making Creep, what he was aiming for. I mean, that's pretty much the general gist of these directors. But what was really cool is like all these directors, including Brice, they were talking about like their favorite found footage horror films, and I was really surprised in just how many of these films were actually just unheard of and fucking underground. And I was looking them up, and I'm like, wow, literally nobody has fucking seen these films. Holy shit. And then they go back into, like I was saying earlier, like they interview the director, for example, of Cannibal Holocaust, and for like a lot of you will probably know by now, Cannibal Holocaust was kind of like more or less the first actual found footage horror film, but it was banned in a lot of places because it's got things like animal cruelty. And then there were people that were like, well, the animal cruelty, which is fucking real, it's pretty fucked, they actually thought the violence against people must have been real too. And this thing was like banned, and it has now gained since like a cult following. But one thing I really liked about this documentary is that it was so brutally honest. Like they actually went in and even took to the stage, like, yeah, these people, these actors from the Cannibal Holocaust, for example, they had to retire from acting because this thing was so damn distressing. And obviously that didn't help the case about the authenticity or the fictional format or whatever. That obviously didn't help. Now, going into another director that I was really that I really admired and really adored his time in the film was the director of the McPherson Tapes. So McPherson Tape, much like the Cannibal Holocaust, is kind of like described as like one of the first found footage horror films. And one thing that I really liked about what this director said is he said, I wasn't setting out to make a found footage horror film, or like, the first found footage horror film or whatever for that matter. He's like, because found footage horror wasn't a thing. He's like, I was broke and I wanted to make my first film by the time I was 25, like my idols, Orson Welles, Scorsese, Spielberg, and, I only had like $6,500, so I wanted to make this horror film, and, I didn't have any fucking equipment, so I made this thing, and, because of that, it is now labeled as a found footage horror film, and not only that, but the first one. And like, he goes so much further as, like, he even, so what's really cool about the movie is that the movie goes into even, like, the criticisms and, like, the flaws of found footage horror, like why people worldwide hate this thing. And, they even the director specifically of the McPherson Tapes, he goes, he says this line where he's like, the biggest thing that found footage horror directors get is like, why is the camera on? Why are you leaving the camera on? And he's like, and even like movies, they reference this, like characters references in their own fucking movies. They do it in the Blair Witch Project, for example, where they're like, stop filming. Why are you possibly filming at a time like this? And he says, like that's the whole joke behind it. Why is the camera on? You have, in order to make a found footage horror film successful and work, there's always got to be a reason why the camera is on. And I really admired that. This dude is a real fucking genius. You get a lot of information in a very short amount of time, regardless of how long this film is, which I'll get to later on. But they even go into things such as like, how the found footage format has advanced over the years. How it started, how far it's come, and even going into, again, like radio broadcasts and things that and shit, like that played a part in this impact. And again, I think that this film, at the end of the day, I think that this documentary is just very respectful, especially to the directors. They give each director a good amount of time to talk about not only the found footage, impact, but, they talk about their films and their legacies, and, they show enough about the films to get the viewer interested, to keep them up to date without spoiling shit. Like, yeah, I just think that, like, as an overall found footage horror documentary from Shudder, they fucking brought it, man. It was good. It was a fine time. Now, going back to what I was saying just a second ago, the length. So yeah, I do think that it is, really insightful. I think that it's really impactful. I think that it's, exactly what it wants to be and should be. It's, no harm, no foul with this thing. But, whatever you want to call it. But in saying that, yeah, it is a really long movie. I mean, it's not, like, long to the point of, like, whoa, that runtime. No, it's not like that. But, like, this thing is almost 2 hours, and it really is just... It is just, 2 hours almost of just, people talking about the found footage horror, genre, which, again, as a fan of found footage horror, I was, excited for this. I enjoyed this. I thought it was very insightful again. But at the end of the day, it's just 2 hours of people talking about found footage horror. And, there are times where I didn't think that this really, especially toward the end, I was like, did this really need to be like a full length runtime? Like, I feel like this could have been like, a mini series or something. I feel like it could have worked better as that. Kind of like what they did with, cursed films. And again, it goes into, a lot more deeper stuff than even I mentioned. It goes into, how it's like, helped people become filmmakers, people that thought that they, couldn't make a film because they didn't have a big budget, Like, for example, there are found footage horror films and just found footage films in general that are big budgeted, successes, commercial films like, Cloverfield or Chronicle or District 9. So again, it really is like, it is the found footage horror documentary that it could possibly be. But, in saying that, yeah, I did find myself, feeling a little bit distracted towards the end, kind of, getting a little bit, antsy about when's this thing gonna end, because it's like, yes, it's interesting, but you can only, keep something going for so long before it's just like, all right, I kind of get it. But yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, this is definitely enjoyable. This is definitely, something that is worth watching and worth recommending. And especially, filmmakers or horror buffs like myself and, many of you out there, this is definitely something that is very insightful and very educational. And I think that, yeah, I mean, I really don't have many flaws with this one. Other than the fact that, again, I feel like this could have been, a lot more kind of like, toned down a little bit. It didn't need to go all out like it did. But, in saying that, there's still very little flaws that I have about it. I'm feeling overall a solid 5.5 to maybe a 6 out of 10 for this one. I definitely recommend it. I definitely enjoyed this one. But, just know that regardless of how much you respect the found footage format, or anything for that matter, again, like me, who's a big fan of it, you gotta be a fucking found footage fuckhead to really sit there for 2 hours and watch people just talk on camera about found footage horror. It does take a lot. But in saying that, the movie just, it means well, and it does everything very well. I just think that, again, it could have been toned down a little bit. So yes, guys, that is going to do it for my found footage phenomenon review. My next review, again, will be Jackass 4.5, which will either be tonight or tomorrow. And after I do that review, just really quickly, I will be taking a few days off. It is getting towards the end of the month now. Summer's like right around the corner. I got some stuff planned for that. And yeah, I just, it's time to recuperate, kind of, tone things down a little bit before kicking into summer blockbusters. So, yes, guys, that's going to do it for this review. Let me know what you thought of this video, as well as the found footage phenomenon. What found footage horror films do you guys recommend? I actually really would like to know this stuff. I'm a big found footage horror fan, again, and... again, there was a lot of these movies where I was taking notes, man. They got some fucking underrated gems here. So yeah, let me know what you guys thought about the movie as well as the review. Let me know what you guys think of the found footage genre in general. And thank you so much for watching. Take care of yourselves, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care, guys.